that side of it was like you were sharing your experience in a kind of weird way with people that came, and then and then you could listen to the result, the album afterwards. We could all listen to it in a sense.
Do you think it's possible to remix any elements in the sense of like a with the I didn't see the initial painting, what that was like, that installation with the rising glass walls, or horizon point, however you're interpreting that particular image. But when you're performing the sounds you're working with as DJs, they were in the raw state, or
yeah, they were. We were actually. We were working live there, so it was like, everything was like you were just going for it and playing and that was quite demanding. It was quite difficult, I think.
Well, it was over an hour.
Yeah.
I think it's quite difficult to sustain interest with you for an hour if you are making it up as you go along.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just happens, and suddenly it's an hour later. But sometimes, obviously we couldn't finish until the painting.
Yeah, we were all everything was tied together, and it is that thing of like not really being able to try and impress anybody. It's quite, in a way, it was quite a continuous thing, wasn't it?
It wasn't idle to begin.
And it basically really came into its own when that did loop, and it was just on for 10 hours a day as an installation with this kind of aftermath kind of thing.
Because it was on, that's right, so there was the performance and then it was open for 2 days to the public without us being there, and it was just the machines were on the table. You think you saw the shutter at the beginning?
But also, the part of the idea was that using the piezo kind of pickups on the back of the boards, which were painted, so that when Naomi was painting it, and you had another painter on the other side, so there were 2 people painting at the same time, then that sound was being fed back into the mix where Bruce and I were. And so it was very, very physical, but also what happened is that they became giant microphones for the audience, didn't they? So you kind of had all this kind of audience noise going into these huge boards, and which in a way was quite interesting, because I think when it was an installation you had all this, you were in an empty space and you had all of this presence, as well as the kind of field recordings, as well as the electronic haze, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's a difficult one to kind of assess, really. I remember feeling like, wow, that was hard. That's how I came out of it. Was like that was challenging. But it was good. It was good because of, at that point, if it had finished at that point, then I don't think we would have released that material or anything like that. It would have been, okay, well, that was a good experience, and that went so far. But it certainly needed to go further. It had to, I think, and it did. So that was really good.
Do you think that you said it was white, and then you painted it black, and it changed the whole atmosphere there? And you thought about experimenting with different colours, see how that would react, like blue or yellow?
Well, that would change it again. But
exactly. I was just wondering.
Yeah, but in this instance, it was a very definite decision that it was black, that it was very simple, and it was, it was sort of a bit binary, really. Black to white to black.
Did it close the space down? You were saying about the change.
Yes, it did.
Quite significant.
So I think for that piece, it had to be black. But obviously, it would make a huge difference. Yeah.
It was kind of a very minimal space in the beginning, very architectural in a way. The guy who is in charge of that space is an architect, so it was all very, very kind of sharp, hard lines and very white, and so it felt like, for us, it was a very black and white situation, and the most complete thing we could do, and the most simple thing we could do, was to paint it black, for it to change. And
It wasn't
that's
the first idea though for that space actually, was it?
what was the first idea?
You're going to have some sculpture thing in the middle.
Yeah.
It was very different.
Yeah, but then
It ended up, you know, being
You
very,
come
very
up with a
simple
solution.
actions. So the solution was simplicity.
And how do you make your decisions on, you know, you're working?
Sort of like that.
yeah. Just do just do.
Work
Talking
through
about
things. It's like
We're doing
working through sketchbooks, but all made a bit maybe, or
You make suggestions and sound it out and...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we're kind
what
of
do you mean?
quite.
How do we work between
Yeah,
us?
the three of you together.
Talking about things,
Yeah.
and then
Having a chat.
Yeah.
And is that a process that goes on continuously? Is there a point where the chat stops and the work
we don't
begins?
see each other very often. Like we didn't know what we were going to do. We always sort of discuss it on the plane, didn't we? And we don't know what we're going to be doing tomorrow. But I remember the decision about in fact, the miking of the. I think I wanted to mic the paintbrush, which wasn't physically possible or something.
No,
so it ended up
exactly.
being the solution was to mic the boards. So, an idea just develops as, you have to find a practical solution.
Didn't we actually borrow some radio mics?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did.
To take them to the paintbrush with this.
Yeah, it did
Wow.
really work. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, basically, it just through
It'd be quite good
discussion.
actually. Something I'd quite like to do for this project is to make it be a bit more, record more of the decision-making process.
Is there ever conflict between you? Go on, be honest.
Not really, because I think
Well,
that.
David and I are used to fighting quite, because we worked very closely together for a long, long time, but we wouldn't be too polite to fight with.
Not really. I mean, I think you kind of. There's a lot of trust in the equation, so you kind of like, and I enjoy that. I mean, it's just like about kind of, to some extent, the collaboration process is about letting go of how you would do it on your own,
Yes,
and letting somebody else take over at a certain point, or to inject their idea or whatever. And so it's really just about having this thing where you kind of, everybody is sharing and being quite generous or whatever, or that you're just trusting people, and also just trying to find economic ways to move forward as well. It's quite often, I mean, that project was done with very, very little money, so we're having to be careful about not wasting time, also careful about not getting ourselves into some kind of sticky corner where we weren't enjoying what we were doing. So we had to find ways in which we were all interested and we could share the interest and that kind of thing.
It's interesting, I mean, obviously the three of us work together as a group, and of course there's a huge amount of trust involved. We've been together longer than Blur.
Yeah.
So, I know that every now and then you think, conflict's quite an interesting thing to bring into a situation, whether that's constructive or destructive, I don't know, or whether it's something you ever consider.
Yeah, I mean,
There
maybe like.
definitely are. There definitely is, different ideas. But you generally know when somebody's got a better idea than you, don't you? I mean,
Always.
Yeah. So that's the point. Hi, thank you. Sorry for coming.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes someone might be more stubborn than usual, and then you know that you should probably kind of capitulate and let them have their way, or something like that, I don't know. But yeah, I think we all have our own very definite kind of positions. And
I think most often what happens is, there's maybe an idea starts with somebody and then it suddenly adds a bit, somebody else adds another bit, and the first person comes back and solves it, or it's maybe, or it could in an opposite order.
Well, his other suggestion was modify the original suggestion. There's a building process, taking bricks out and putting bricks I think.
But yeah, and also I think that perhaps part of it is that we didn't have anything substantial in the first place to argue about. You know, it's like we had to make something that would be then something you could argue about. And but fortunately, maybe I mean, there was a bit of, you know, like fighting for certain things at the very end. Not fighting with Russell, but listening to his advice, but also being quite strong. We were firm about keeping the order of the tracks, but then kind of gave him a little bit in terms of, and actually he was right, like linking them all together. So, you know, there were those moments where you think, well, you know, we don't want to do it like that. So you say, well, we want to do it as it is, you know.
It's that feeling, that, you know, contradictory feeling. Don't really want it to be a record.
Yeah.
But it's in that area, so there has to be certain things. Like using Russell as the editor was very useful. Didn't have to.
Yeah. And the title of it, what's the story there?
Deluvial.
Yeah.
Well, it's just an image. It's a word that means deluge.
Deluge, yeah.
What's it?
Comes from geography, doesn't it? Alluvial plain.
Yeah.
I can still remember being at school. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think A-level geography or something.
So, I mean, that was
That,
a very...
that might have come out of Googling or sort. I can't remember really where it came from.
I was there very early on.
Yeah.
And that was set, like that's like a point that you work from. And
Yeah, the title was there,
Yeah.
and it was something. Yeah.
That's quite common actually with our projects.
Yeah.
The title comes quite
Okay.
early.
And the title is like a distillation or something you work
Yeah.
off of. And
I was thinking
It's
he's
almost
played the
like you
music
can't
with
work with it,
sinkholes
so
as well, you know?
Mm.
Well, the sinkholes.
Yeah.
Then the water goes down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So strange sort of appearances, aren't there? In the play.
I suppose the most common usage is antediluvian, isn't it? Before the great
Yeah.
flood.
Yeah.
So it is the diluvial,
Yeah.
pertaining to flood.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I don't know if we should round up at this point. With
Yeah, gone on for hours.
I know. we were going to do a quick discussion at the end so that you could ask us questions as well. But
well, we could move to the pub or something.
we can move
That
to
sounds like a good
There you
idea.
go.
But thank you so much
Great idea.
Yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the presentation. One last
Any
thing.
chance of getting a photo of the artist for yourselves? I've got
yes.
to take one home with me.
I will
I must get my
send
camera,
it to
do you
you.
mind?
Just
One last thing,
one
yes.
last thing.
Yeah.
We're trying to raise funding to produce a piece, and our campaign is on Kickstarter, and you can actually, if you like, buy the sound piece in advance.
That's right. So if you
This
want a
sound
piece
piece
of the
that
work,
you
if you
are
want
the
to
next
be-
sound piece.
Next one, this one
Okay.
that we are
this one.
producing
So if you
Oh,
want to
this
be one of the
residency.
producers
Okay, I like
and
that.
also own a piece yourself, just
Okay.
go on our Kickstarter.
And so, but apart from that, the artist kindly contributed quite rare CDs of their previous work, signed, limited edition albums and so on as well.
That's
so
right.
you can take a look, and or if you like to do that now,
We
please,
can,
please
we can
feel
also show
free
you
to.
where to go, what to do,
Yes,
give a few
exactly.
moments.
Yeah.
I can put it on,
Show you
I
the
can put it on the,
website.
I can put it on the website. as
That would be
well.
great.
I email it out from the,
Yeah,
from the
that
guest
Or
would
it'll be on the
house.
website. It'll be
Yeah.
on the
I
website.
mail it
Yeah.
out from the
Yeah.
email.
That'd be great. Thank
And
you.
do you have any CDs there, no? Witchy, do you bring a bunch of them? No?
But you can buy it.
They're
You
actually
can.
really. There's not
Yeah.
many left.
I can't quite, I think I've given the one I had, or 2 or 3 I had.
They are very limited edition. However,
However, it is
If you-
available on
It is
this
available
online
as part of our
campaign,
fundraiser, yeah.
fundraising campaign.